31st, that last week of 2022. So again, we're going to start off just by looking at some numbers. I mostly started doing this last week, putting up these numbers, and it's mostly for my own curiosity, just to kind of see and compare how my numbers were. This week was even better than last week, which was encouraging. I think last week we sold 30 something items, and this week it was up to 56. And I think we sold about $500 more altogether. So again, these numbers are not super scientific or anything like that. They're just very loose, kind of like gross amounts. So it's not this isn't profit. This is just the amount things sold for. So on eBay, we had $900 worth of sales. Poshmark came next with $450. And then there were no sales on Depop, a few on each of the Etsy's. Ruby Lane had some, a few sales there. Mercari, that we don't really deal with very much, had one sale of just an older piece of inventory. But anyway, let's get right into the actual items that sold. And so we're going to go into and start with eBay. Hey guys, this is Editing Shannon. I just realized at the beginning of this video, I forgot to ask a question I had been meaning to ask. And that is, what was your top sale of the week this week? It was really so much fun in that last top 22 video to read about the things that you had found and sold. So go ahead, leave me a comment in this video. What was your top sale of the last week? Again, whatever your criteria is for that. So anyway, I look forward to reading those comments, and let's go on to what sold on eBay to start. So to our first sale on eBay from last week was this corduroy shirt. This was LL Bean, but it was not vintage. It was newer. And it just was it looked really comfortable. It was a plus size, which worked in its favor, I think. And it was corduroy. It just to me seems like it's just popular no matter what decade it is. And so it was a wider wale corduroy. And anyway, yeah, so it didn't sell for $35. It sold for $30, which was either an offer we sent out or an offer that got sent to us. Next up was a toy. So this was a vintage Transformers toy. It was Grimlock. It was missing some pieces, and so I think it would have sold for more if it was complete. My husband found this. So I've talked before in my What Solds about, so this is what it transforms to. I've talked before about our little bins clearance center in town. So it's not a Goodwill bins, but it's attached to our local thrift store chain, and they have a little clearance center, and so it's kind of a tiny version of the Goodwill bins, and they don't do it by the pound. They just do it by how many items you get, what size bag you fill, or whatever. So this was from one of his trips to the bins, and just kind of dug around at the bottom of the toy bin and found this Transformers, which was it was an original from the 80s. So he was excited about that. Like I said, I think it would have sold for more if it was complete, but we were really happy to have only paid pennies for it and sold it for $60. Next up is a baseball mitt. Some baseball mitts can be actually worth quite a bit of money. This was not one of them. I don't know where we picked this one up, and sometimes we just pick them up if they're cheap enough and figure it out later. This one actually sold for $15, but there's usually numbers printed on baseball gloves, so even condition doesn't always make it not worth it, or age or anything like that. You just have to look up the number and double check it. Some can sell for 30, 40, 50, even higher. Now, this was a brand, I shared this on my Instagram, and a lot of people hadn't heard of it, but I think I found it when we lived in Washington. I found it a few times here in Montana. It's a Canadian brand. It's called Simply, And I would say that it reminds me a lot of like Chico's Travelers. It's that same kind of material, doesn't wrinkle. It's very flattering. It's very comfortable. I have found a few pieces that I've kept for myself. And one of the basic black shirts, it's just one of my favorites. And I really like it. So it's comfortable and it's, like I said, it's flattering and everything. So this was it was a tunic, but also could be a shorter dress. And it sold for $45. This was a pickup that my husband made at, I don't know if I mentioned this. He had one day where he was at the thrift store by himself for the first time in a long time. And he was just kind of in sticker shock over the prices. So he was really kind of looking for stuff that was under the radar. And I don't think this was priced super high, and it was half off day. So I think he paid about $5 for it. But it is a cycling. They're bib shorts. They're padded. But he was like, they were in really, really good condition. The brand is called Gore. And he looked it up and it seemed like it was worth it. And it actually sold pretty quickly. I would say like within a week. And it made me think of the video I just did about the things to sell or to list before the new year, and workout gear and activewear being one of those things. I'll link it up below or above. I'll link the other video up above so you can check it out. But so yeah, this sold that week right after Christmas. Maybe somebody wanted to get going on their cycling goals. Okay. So this is my love of vintage that I really can't resist when I see things. This is a spice rack, and it goes up under your counter, and it's designed to hold the tins, spice tins. So here, let's look at the back, and I can show you a picture. Okay, so you see how it's under the counter. You can tell it's obviously vintage, and those tins just kind of slide in there and are held. And I had this listed, I think, on Etsy for a while. I had it on eBay, and it really was going to take the right person to want this and to see the value in it and maybe use it for a movie prop or something like that. Anyway, I think I picked this up at a yard sale for like 25 cents. And I kind of remember the yard sale it was at. Anyway, we finally got an offer for $10, or I sent one for $10. I think it was we had finally gotten someone watching and I could send them an offer. So I sent them $10. They said yes. But I just got notification that they want to return it. So we'll see what happens. They said it was smaller than they expected. So I don't know. It just holds a few little tins of spices. So I'm not sure how big. And it has to fit under your counter. So I'm really not sure how big they thought it was going to be. Or maybe they thought it was for some other kind of spices or something. Anyway, we'll see what happens. I have several pending returns and no one has shipped anything yet. So they either will or they won't. And we'll just see what happens. Next one. Okay, if you remember the video, again, I'll link it up above. But I had done a thrift haul and I had found this hat, this polo sportsman hat, as well as another polo hat with the teddy bear, and I think I showed that in my what sold last week. And so this one with the fish actually ended up being more valuable. You can kind of see there's a little bit of damage, creasing, in the brim. And there was a little stain and kind of like a hole in the middle of the back. So I was willing to take some offers. And when I finally got a $65 offer, I just went ahead and took that. So comps were like around 75, 80. 65 was close enough. Somebody offered me something really a lot lower when I first listed it. But they, so it it did pretty good. So $65. Again, this was a day I picked up a bunch of hats, and hats are $2 at my thrift store. And so I thought that was pretty good. Those two hats together sold for about $100. And this went to a forwarding, like a shipping service, so it was going to go overseas, where a lot of the Ralph Lauren collectors are. Okay, these are a pair of Dr. Scholl's sandals. They look like the regular wooden clogs. They have that same look, but they're made out of, they're suede, and then I think the sides were like rubber, and they looked really comfortable. But they sold for $25 fairly quickly, and they went to Australia. And they were in really good shape. I paid $3 for those. Now, this is a brand, I shared it as a bolo on Instagram. My Instagram is the same as this. It's Pish Posh Reselling. But I had shared that as a bolo, but then I was like, you know what, I don't know. It's a bolo, but you might have a hard time finding it. So it kind of seemed to be, the brand is called Forlo. And let's see what their little thing says, the future of hunting. And this was just a base layer. It wasn't even wool. I think it was a polyester blend. And something just made me look it up. I mean, I don't sell usually just base layers unless it's Smart Wool or Patagonia or something, or Ibex. I don't necessarily look them up, but something made me look it up. And I saw that this brand was very kind of obscure. There was not a ton of it out there, but then I saw it on Google and I found the store, and the stuff was really expensive. So I gave it a shot, and we ended up selling this shirt for $70. Anyway, that kind of surprised us. Here was a mug, a Frankoma mug. You can see right on the bottom, made in Oklahoma by Frankoma. And it, I could see some comps. It did have some wear. There's a bunch of these little bubble pops all over it. But it was Oklahoma's state bird, I guess, the scissor-tailed flycatcher. So I've done okay with Frankoma here and there. Like it, some pieces are worth a lot and some pieces are not. And so I don't just buy any Frankoma pieces that I see. And so I kind of just took a chance on this. I think I paid $1 and it sold for $20. So it sold for the full amount. So that's a really good, I'm happy with $20 on a mug. Anywhere from $15 to $20, as long as I've paid like $1 or less, I'm usually happy with that. I like listing mugs. Okay, this is another hat. I think I picked it up that same day I got the Polo Ralph Lauren hats. This one, I don't think I looked it up. There was a day I was in a thrift store without my phone. I think my kids were in the car with my husband, and they were all watching something on my phone because my husband had left his at home, or it was dead or something like that. I don't remember. But anyway, I remember shopping blind on a short little shopping trip, and I picked this up, and it actually, because of the plaid, I think there's other patterns to this hat that, they don't sell for that much, maybe $10. But we were fortunate with the plaid look to this. I think that made it a little bit more desirable. It's Dakota Dan. And I mean, it's a very nice winter looking hat. Great for snowboarding or whatever. So it sold for $19, so that's not bad. Especially for something so easy to list. Next one is a hard hat. So if you saw my top 22 sales of 2022, I will link those up above. We tend to look at hard hats now at thrift stores after we had sold that one for so much money. But this one ended up selling for $30, which wasn't too bad. I think he paid a couple dollars. We were at a thrift store together when he found this. But we have the hard hat action, and then we have, it's a 49ers fan can display their fan pride while they're at work, right? So he figured that was a good deal. So $30 wasn't too bad for something fairly easy to deal with. Tiger Woods, this was kind of an experiment. I haven't found a ton of Tiger Woods clothing. I think last week I had some Tiger Woods and Nike pants, and they had sold super quickly, just not for a high amount. This one didn't take too long either. It only sold for $15. We took an offer. We were kind of just taking offers this week, and that could explain our better sales. So, we didn't spend a lot of time countering. We just went ahead, and if we figured the item wasn't going to get that much more, then we went ahead and took the offer, even if it was a little bit lower than we wanted. So we just went ahead and took $15 for this one. Maybe could have held out, but it was fine. This one was just Tiger Woods. It didn't have the Tiger Woods Nike combo, which I think is what does better. Sold a pattern on eBay. That doesn't happen very often. I don't have that many listed there anymore, but I sent out an offer for $9 to try to move some of these patterns, and a lady accepted and then let me know that she was going to pay in a few days. So I went ahead and, well, what else am I going to do? So anyway, she did. She paid even like a day earlier than she said she was going to. This I think I showed in one of my thrift hauls, but I picked this up at Goodwill one day. I like to look at all the little bags and wallets and kind of little things I think tend to get overlooked. But this was called Torso Packs, Ultimate Torso Packs. And it's just basically like there was two things to it, a little pack and then a bottle holder. And they just kind of go around, well, they say torso packs, but you can put them around your waist. You can put them around wherever you want to put them around. But anyway, I just thought the colors were very 90s, very 80s. And so we sold those fairly quickly for $29. Let me see if that was the price we got. Yeah, $30 for that. That was pretty good. I only paid a couple bucks. Now this was something my husband brought home from that little clearance store, from those bins. And, the Goodwill bins, you pay by the pound, so this would have been several dollars, but at that place, it's just kind of by a bag. And so, I don't know, he might have done $10. It's $10 at the most for a big black plastic bag. And a lot of times, if your bag's not quite that full, then it's less. So he's paid $8, he's paid $6, just different times. So, with the amount of items that he gets, this was $1 at the most. And yeah, that's kind of our little hidden gem of a place. And it doesn't look like much when you get there. It's very small. And there is a lot of broken stuff and dirty stuff and stained stuff. And you have to dig. I know my husband had some appointments this week, and he wanted to stop there in between appointments. And he got there right as it opened, and he just said he was really just kind of like, didn't feel like going because there were all these pickers and people lined up to go in first thing. And the place is not that big, right? And he's like, I just didn't feel like fighting people and like watching them get things. And he's like, I just wasn't in the mood for that. And I tell you, we have gone at all different times, not when it's first open. We go in the afternoon, we go different times, and we always find something. So, not everybody's looking for the same thing, but you don't always want to have that fight with people, right? And so I think just do your thing and, you'll end up finding something good. So this was just Calvin Klein, but it was 100% wool. It was clean. We didn't have to do anything to it. And it sold for $70. This, I believe, was another bins find that day. He washed it. We washed this one. We wash our hats and things that come from there. And it was, it looked a lot better. He's like, oh, it looks so much better. I might keep it. But I really have to give him credit because it didn't sell for $48.99. It sold for $31. But 31 is way more than I would have priced this at. Oakley is good. It can be good, but a lot of it just sells for just very basic prices. Like I would have guessed like $10 for this. And so he priced it high, like at $49. And I remember I was cross-posting it to Posh. And I was like, "Are you sure? 48.99?" He's like, "Well, there's just nothing like it, and it's the older Oakley logo." And he's just like, it's not the oldest logo, but it's like not the current one. So anyway, he just went ahead and threw that up there. And so to get $31 for that just kind of blew my mind. So that is why everybody eBays a little bit differently. And it works out really good. Yeah, so it was in really good shape. Okay, a baseball hat. We've said before, we love this bread and butter baseball hats. We have 2 of these. It was one of those days when I bought a bunch of baseball hats at the thrift store. I mean, I don't think I've gone lately without coming home with at least 1 or 2 hats. So this one's just Kubota, and it was new without tags. Like it still had the cardboard insert in it. And yeah, so that one sold for $15 with an offer. These earrings have been listed a long time. They're like 90s Y2K. They were really nice looking. They're clip-ons. I ended up getting an offer for 17, sending an offer for 17 that somebody accepted. I think maybe I needed better pictures or something. I think they should have sold a lot sooner. Based on other types like this I have sold in the past. And they were the limited, just from the store. But yeah. Anyway, I don't give a whole lot of attention to whatever jewelry pieces I have left on eBay. So that has something to do with it too. If you're not constantly kind of renewing and adding new things in a certain category, I think your stuff just kind of drops and drops and drops. And I probably should have ended and relisted this one a lot sooner. But happy to sell them for 17. This shirt, we spent one day this week going through some bins of clothing and hard goods that are in our garage, and it was eye-opening, the profit pile that's out there. It was also productive because we found some winter things that we definitely should be getting listed. I mean, it's almost time to move on to our spring things, but we need to give some more. There's a few sweaters and things that, we need to at least give them a chance in January and the rest of this winter to sell. And then once they're listed, they're all set for next year. But this Pendleton shirt was in there, and I had all my clothing, my unlisted clothing inventory, organized into needed, things that needed to be listed, and these were shirts and these were pants and all that kind of stuff. And so we found this one. I think I just got it at a thrift store, but my husband listed it, and he spent a long time delinting and whatever you call it, depilling, and he just said, what, it looks kind of worn. So he's like, I'm not going to put a high price on it. I'm just going to put an average price on it and then just let it go quickly. And it did. It sold overnight. So $50, he just wanted to give somebody a good deal. It's not vintage. It's a newer tag. But that high-grade Western wear is always really popular. I'm thinking even more so with the Yellowstone series going on. But yeah, he just wanted to make sure, somebody felt like they were getting a good deal. 511 Tactical. We've sold some of their pants and things like that before. I came across a couple sweatshirts. I have this extra large one, and then Maybe another one is a size bigger or a size smaller. I can't remember. But this one we took an offer for $30 and just were happy to move that along. FootJoy. This was interesting. It was new with tags, which helped a lot. But it also had the NBC Golf logo on it. So I saw this in our local thrift store, has a section where they put their new with tag stuff, and it's usually priced a little bit higher. But it also, you can get it on half price day. So this one wasn't too bad. I think I ended up paying $4. They had it priced at like $8. And I looked up and saw that FootJoy and NBC Golf shirts had sold before. And of course, it being new with tags definitely helped a lot. So that sold for $37. Next one. This one, oh man. Ay, ay, ay. My little tabbies are not working. All right, so I ended up skipping over one because it registered my little click twice and it ended up closing that tab. But it basically was just a Carhartt hat, a beanie with a faux fur pom-pom on the top. And maybe I can throw up a picture when I'm editing right here, and it just sold for $19. I just picked it up real quick. I happened to be at Goodwill the other day when they were putting out, it was the day I got all the shoes in that shoe haul video, and they were putting new hats out, and so I saw this Carhartt hat and grabbed that real quick and paid $2, and it sold for $19. My husband said it's still available on the website right now for $25 or $30 or something like that, so that was a good deal. This is an Eddie Bauer vest. It took a little bit to sell. But Eddie Bauer, it's kind of an average selling thing. It actually sold for $29. Eddie Bauer women's clothes, I personally don't do super well with them. I mean, it really depends on the item. I guess that's true of the men's clothing too. But this had like a faux fur lining. I just thought it would be really good. It's an extra large, but it took a while, and so someone offered me $29, and I was like, yeah, for sure. Okay, Moomin. This might be something new. This is a little cup. It's more like an espresso size cup, demi-tasse, and it has a little O handle. But these are cartoon characters that are... Now I'm going to say all my info is not on here because it's just something I knew about. So now I have to go off my memory. I believe it's Norwegian. So a Norwegian character, or Finnish. No, sorry, not Norwegian, Finnish, of course. And it's just a little folk arty cartoon character in Finland. And this one was not marked on the bottom at all. And I only saw one other that was, this small size and shape. It might have been like from a cafe in Japan or something like that. But if you can find Moomin characters on a mug that's made by Arabia of Finland, those are really high-priced mugs. And I think I have found one in my life before. So this one sold for $15. It's just a tiny little cup. So I just went ahead and took that $15 offer. And I was happy to move that on. Kind of interesting. This, I think my husband picked up. Yeah, he got this at the thrift store that he thought was too expensive. I think he only picked this up because, let's see. Yeah, it was new with tags. So that's the only reason we grabbed it. And it sold for $37. We were sending lots of offers and accepting a lot of offers this week. This one was from our little outlet center, the Bins. Columbia Breakup Camouflage. It's a hat with ear flaps. He cleaned that up, and it cleaned up really nicely. And made in Taiwan, so it's vintage, actually. So sold for that price, $38.99. So that was really good. Rockies, I think I sold a pair last week we talked about. So they're, Western style jeans with the no pockets in the back. They're very, very high waisted, and that can be a really good thing these days. But I think this Western style is just popular for those who are living that Western lifestyle. Anyway, okay, so those did not sell for $49. They sold for $40. We took that offer, but we had a bunch of Rockies jeans, and they'd been sitting. My husband came across them, and he's been helping me, like I said, catch up on some of my clothing. And he listed all the Rockies one after the other. And so I think we're now, one of them sold like today, so it's not in this week's. It'll be in next week's. Actually, two of them may be sold today. I don't know. But anyway, they're all gone. We had like 4 pairs, and in the last couple of weeks, they've all sold. So at various price points. Okay, let's move on to Posh. Pair of Prana jeans, men's, $25. Prana, hit or miss. Some of it just sits and sits and sits, and then it'll sell. These actually went pretty quickly, but not super high numbers. Carhartt Hamilton. If you saw my top 22 sales, we were talking about Carhartt and how some of the pieces are more sought after than others, and this was one of those. Even though in a lot of jeans and pants, flannel lined and insulated is so hard to sell anymore. It used to sell so well, and now it's really hard to sell, but there's something about this one that is still really sought after. So we had those listed. We had a lot of interest on it right away, and anyway, it sold for $49. So we had it on eBay for several days, and we had quite a few watchers, and we were sending offers and stuff like that. And then I was finally catching up with my cross listing. So I think I've said before, I cross list using Vendu, and it just makes it's just a really easy to program to work with. And I cross posted these pants over to Poshmark, and I don't know, like 5 minutes later, I had an offer for $49, and they sold. So, some things on Poshmark are like that. As soon as you get them on there, somebody sees it and somebody wants it. Anyway, so I was thrilled about that. Like, who knows how much longer they would have sat on eBay. They eventually would have sold. But just taking that minute to cross post over to Poshmark, we got that sale right away. So I love Vendu. If you guys want to try it, I do have a link in my description below where you can get 25% off your first month. Starbucks mug, I usually pick these up. Some sell way better than others. This series, the Been There series, there's not a bunch that are really high value. But you'll probably get in the $15 to $20 range, and I seem to do better either with Mercari or Poshmark with this. Pair of boots that I don't know, we've just kind of had. I think my husband picked these up last year, and we never got them listed. And I don't know if they weren't as good as what he thought they were going to be. But anyway, he had listed them kind of low. We got a $22 offer, and he was like, yeah, go ahead and take it. Peter Millar, you've probably heard that name from other resellers. It's a golf company. So there's certain polo golf shirts that do pretty well. Some of his shirts do better than others, but it seems like a lot of his other clothing can do pretty well. So I saw these jeans one time at the thrift store and decided to take a chance on that, and they sold for $30 fairly quickly. So I would pick up Peter Millar jeans again, especially they're straight leg, and they weren't skinny jeans or anything like that. Here's another pair of the Rockies. See, these only sold for like $25, but my husband had looked up, when he listed, he looked up all the style codes and everything like that, and he figured out which ones were more sought after, even though they all look pretty similar. So if you look, I use different keywords. When I cross-posted it over to Posh, I put more of the high-waisted Y2K mom jeans, And then bareback is something that you can use for the style of the back of the jeans that has no pocket. I got that tip from a Poshmark seller on Facebook back in the day. Another bins find. So we're just racking up good finds over there. We found this black 2-button blazer. There was a beige one at the same time, and my husband picked up both of them, and it sold fairly quickly for $40. So the beige one is still listed, and yeah, but this one was 100% wool, so that was one of the reasons he definitely picked it up. Anyway, moving on. This was a find from, I think from the bins, but it was from last year. One of the days my husband went out and he brought some stuff home for me. So it's been listed for a long time. It's got a cute little look, Tyrolean and everything like that. It did have a flaw, and yeah, it's just, it wasn't super exciting, but I got a $15 offer and it had been listed so long. I was like, yeah, you know it. This mug, I don't understand. So there are some things in the reselling world I'll just never get. I have sold Otagiri mugs forever. And on Etsy, you could throw an Otagiri mug on there and it was like a guaranteed sale. Now, this is a stoneware mug. It's got fly fishing, which is a really good topic actually for a mug. I've had this on eBay. I've had it on Etsy. I've had it, obviously it's sold on Poshmark. I could not believe that nobody wanted this mug. And when I finally got an $11 offer, or I think the price had dropped a little bit on it, the longer it was on Posh, and it sent out an offer and somebody accepted it. And I was like, okay, finally. Anyway, I will never understand that. That, to me, should have sold for at least $20. Couple little hats. Again, I picked up at Goodwill. Turns out that it's a company in Vermont, Skida. I picked these up the day I didn't have my phone. And there was 2 of them. And it turns out it's a company in Vermont, and it's more to do with cross-country skiing and a woman who just kind of started a little hat business, but we sold this one for $20. Cool. It's, a brand that we've talked about on the channel before, KUHL, and this was a nice vest by them, a woman's vest, kind of that neoprene, kind of scuba type material on part of it. And so it sold for $34. This was probably my top sale of the week. So I had been dropped off at Goodwill. I had a couple hours. It was the day of the shoe haul, and I had filled up my cart, and I was still kind of waiting to get picked up again. So I ended up in women's for a little bit, and I was looking at coats, and I told my husband, I said, I'm kind of burned out on coats. Like, I'm tired of looking for them and listing them, and I don't know what else I would rather be selling, but I'm happy with the coat sales we've had, and so they're not taking up space in the closet. But I just was kind of not excited about looking through the women's coats. But I saw this puffer. Of course, puffers are always what I'm going to look for first. And it was unusual looking, and I only could see at the top. Let me see if I can find it. Here. The tag just says +J, and I don't do designers. I don't know anything. So I was looking to double check that it was definitely down. So I find the tag, hand wash cold, blah, blah, blah. But then I flip it over and I see Uniqlo. Now Uniqlo, I don't know. To me, it's just fast fashion or whatever. And I don't know. I was almost like, it's Uniqlo. I don't want to bother. I'm not going to do it. And so I did see that the fill was down. And then I thought, you know what, just look it up. So I looked up Uniqlo and I looked up +J. and it turns out it's Jill Sander. Still doesn't mean anything to me. And the prices were really, really good for her coats. And so I said, okay, I guess I'm getting it. And I think I paid $8 for it. And it sold. Again, I had it on eBay with lots of attention, cross-posted it to Poshmark, and it sold the next morning for $120. So definitely pays off to have that vendue action. Magellan, I wouldn't normally pick up this brand. I think we picked it up on our cross-country trip. The pants were just in good condition, but they're women's. And hunting pants was sold for $22. Magellan's not a high-priced, I don't think. It's not super high-priced to begin with, so. Robin Ruth, they do a bunch of different hats, and a lot of times a lot more baseball caps, and a lot of times it's locations and things. So this ski one said Alaska on it, and it sold for $18. And here was one, again, Duluth can be really, really good, but we've had a hard time with their fleece jackets. And again, this was one that was so surprising. Like, it didn't sell, it didn't sell, it didn't sell, it didn't sell. When we finally got a $10 offer, I said to my husband, let's double check if we still have this, because he didn't really even remember it from last year. So we confirmed we had it, and we were like, you know what, clear out the old, last week of the year, clear it out, and let's make room for something new to be in there. So let's move on to Ruby Lane. For those of you who don't know, Ruby Lane is a marketplace for vintage and collectibles and antiques. And I've done a couple videos about selling on Ruby Lane, and I will link the first one up above right here. Anyway, it's a really nice marketplace, and I go into all the reasons why I prefer it over Etsy for the most part right now. And anyway, I just wanted to share a few of the solds from this week. So I showed this one last week, and the buyer hadn't paid yet, and so I wanted to explain what I ended up doing. So he didn't pay. It was the holiday weekend, so I didn't push it or anything like that. I didn't remind him. And then I recognized his name as someone who had bought from me before. And the last time he bought from me, he had purchased 2 or 3 items, and they were all utensils with wooden handles. So obviously wooden kitchen, vintage kitchen objects were what he was looking for. So that was the day my husband and I were scouring. We were cleaning up our inventory out in the garage. And I found a couple things that were wooden handled, and they were, just wooden kitchen. And I was like, I got to go run inside. I'm going to get all these listed. There was 4 items. I'm going to get everything listed, and then I'll message him and just let him know I listed new things and see if he wants to add to his purchase order. So these sold for $24. So it totally worked, because then he bought these. He messaged, this was one of the things I listed. These only sold for $20. I totally would have, my price on them was $30, but because he was buying so many things, we worked out a deal with, the price on some things. And these were just awesome. They're hors d'oeuvre picks, very mid-century. They're made in Japan. They're made out of teak. And I totally could have gotten a better price for these eventually. But I was just so glad to move some inventory, and, he's going to be a repeat buyer. I talked to the reseller on Ruby Lane who's been there a while, and she knows who he is. That's what he buys. So I'm assuming he's got some kind of brick and mortar or something like that where he's selling mid-century things, and he likes to stock it with the, wood things. I can't imagine all this stuff in his house, but who knows? So anyway, he bought that, and then he bought these, and it was kind of funny because as we were going through old inventory, my husband saw these, and he's like, do you want to just donate these? He's like, they're just a dime a dozen. They're in every thrift store, and which is not really true, but I've sold these a bunch on Etsy. And they're not worth a ton. I mean, $10 is totally what I would, is what I would ask. But these were in really good condition. Sometimes the wood is broken at the end, but they have a very good mid-century look and everything like that. So I was like, no, I'll list them and I'll see if that buyer wants them. So $10. And then he went back in my shop and found this hourglass timer that was made out of wood. And it was like advertising. It had some advertising thing on the side, but that was pretty cool. That was just listed for 10 anyway. And then these salt and pepper shakers, which were really, really cool. I got them at an estate sale this year. Again, I had them a little higher, but we came to an agreement on the price. And so, yeah, it was awesome because then his total, that was everything for him. His total ended up being about $100. So I turned a $25 sale into a $100 sale just by trying to think about what my buyer might want. And now I know when I find some vintage wooden kitchen things to kind of save them up. And then, I don't know that I'd contact him, but, it seems like he'd come along and find them pretty quickly. Avon, Cape Cod, it's very common. It's out there. I came across this at a yard sale this summer, and it was in a box, and there was a few other pieces, and it was super cheap. I couldn't resist it. But anyway, sold it for 10. Totally fine. I'm glad somebody can get some use out of it. My little brass kangaroo, this was really awesome, but it was in kind of rough shape. So if you can see, the end of the tail there was broken off. And when you look at the inside, it was pretty dirty. I think someone used it. I don't know if it was an ashtray or just like an incense burner or whatever. There was a bunch of ashes and soot and stuff inside. So I cleaned it out. I just decided to go ahead and list it low and see if it would move quickly. And it did. It sold for $15. And the last one on Ruby Lane was this makeup case that was so mod looking, very 60s. The brand was Celebrity New York. It didn't have anything left inside of it. The mirror, there's probably a mirror there, and there would have been something else here, but it was just, where else, are you going to find something with that kind of pattern? It was just really, really cool. It was like vinyl. So I got $20 for that, and I paid 99 cents at the thrift store. So let's pop over to Etsy real quick. Had a couple pattern sales. This 80s pattern. I love that high-low hem that shows the contrasting fabric underneath. So 80s, but that pattern sold for $17. And then this pattern was for Barbie dolls, or since it doesn't say Barbie, you just say fashion doll. And I think I throw on Etsy, it doesn't seem to affect things as much, but I will say a fashion doll such as Barbie kind of thing. And these are pretty collectible, this series of patterns for the 11.5-inch fashion dolls. It goes through each decade. So this one was the 40s. And so that pattern sold for $20. Before I go to the other Etsy shop, let's just pop over. I said I had a Mercari sale. It was another hat. This one had been listed since last year too. It was one of the few listings I have left on Mercari, and so it sold for $14. We're happy to move that along. So let's pop over to the other Etsy shop, which is the flatware. So I told you in the last few videos that I've got some flatware content coming up, and that is definitely true. That should be coming out Thursday. And we're going to start by talking on Thursday about the brands that you should pick up when you're looking at flatware. And we'll talk about my favorite brands to sell. And there'll be some other tips and things like that. And we'll talk about my plans. Like, I have plans to really hammer out some flatware listings this month, and I really think it'll be worth it because I've just listed a little bit. I've turned my old main vintage shop on Etsy. I've turned it from Pish Posh Vintage to Pish Posh Flatware, and I'm just gonna fill up that shop with flatware and utensils. And I only have like 20 listings there right now, and I sold 2 this week, right? So that's like a really good percentage. And I just have, I don't have the most popular things on there at the moment, but I'll just show you. This was Oneida Craft. The pattern's called Nordic Crown. This, I had found a few pieces of it a while back, and so I broke it up into a few different listings based on piece. And this was 4 dinner forks, and they sold for $24. Most places that I buy my flatware, it's like 25 cents a piece. So like a dollar into, or 20 cents to 25 cents, somewhere in there. So 80 cents into $24. It's just such a good return on investment when you're dealing with stainless flatware. And then the other ones I sold that this past week were 2 serving pieces, also by Oneida, and it's Oneida Community, and the pattern's called Satnique, and it was a casserole spoon and a pie server. And those have been listed for quite a while, but they sold for $18. And this is all plus shipping. So anyway, yeah, that was the 2 flatware sales. So like I said, got some flatware content coming up. If you want to go ahead, if you want to be alerted to when those flatware things come out, go ahead and not only hit the subscribe button, but go ahead and hit the post notification bell. Unless you follow the channel so closely that you'll see when I have new things come out. Anyway, I do appreciate all of you who watch, and please, if you're still watching, feel free to leave a comment below. Let me know your best sale of the week. And I loved reading about the finds that you had last year on the last video. And so, let's go ahead and do that again this week. Let me know what was your best sale. So, thanks so much for watching, everyone, and we'll see you later on this week.